You ever had that moment where you just know the game is rigged? Maybe it was in your first job when you realized that working hard didn't get you promoted, but playing office politics did. Maybe it was in a new relationship when you figured out that love alone isn't enough. Power shifts, control, and unspoken rules were always at play. Maybe it was when you moved to a new school or even a country, and suddenly everything you thought you knew about success didn't matter because the rules weren't written down. That's when you learn the truth. Power isn't about doing what's right, it's about who controls what right even means. Welcome to Anthropologically Yours. I am Rashmi, and together we will today rip apart the polite lies that we have been fed about power, success, morality, and control. Today's episode is all about how morality was designed to maintain power, the secret ways elites use ethics not to guide society but to control it, why leaders never follow the rules they impose on others, and why you need to stop playing fair in a game that rewards power. This is going to be uncomfortable. This is going to be a little dangerous. This is going to change how you see everything. So let's get started. The first moral trick, morality, was created to control. And let's talk about how the first rulers hacked morality to keep power and why we are still falling for it. When we think of ethics, we think of doing the right thing. But let's be real, who decides what's right and what's wrong? Here's a fact. The concept of morality didn't evolve to make people good. It evolved as a tool for social control, and history proves it. Did you know the first ethical codes were about power, not justice? Ancient Mesopotamian law, Code of Ur-Nammu 2100 BCE, I quote, the oldest legal code we have found, wasn't about fairness, it was about maintaining hierarchy. The law had different punishments for the same crime depending on your class. Yes, the class system I'm talking about, which is very much dominant in today's times as well. Steal from a noble, death. Steal from a farmer, a fine. Ethics from the very beginning were written to protect power, not people. The second is the Hammurabi's Code from 1754 BCE, the first fairness scam. An eye for an eye wasn't about justice, it was about controlling vengeance, so the ruling class didn't get caught in wars between families. The punishment system wasn't about moral balance, it was about ensuring that retribution never reached the powerful. Then comes the religious moral codes, and we are talking about Egypt, we are talking about India, we are talking about Greece and China. Almost every civilization developed in these countries developed a moral order that reinforced one key idea, that is obedience. And that, my friend, is virtue. The rich, the priests, the kings, they weren't morally better, but they wrote the laws so that following them became a moral obligation. Isn't that the truth till today? And if you resisted, you were called evil. That was more than a punishment. This isn't ancient history, this is exactly how power works today. Governments, corporations, institutions, they tell you what's moral to ensure that you stay in line and stay in power. The evolutionary lie. Humans are not naturally good. Now let's get deeper. You have been told that morality is innate, that humans evolved to be good to each other. But anthropology says otherwise. Did you know humans are hardwired for hypocrisy? why the good people are the worst. Studies show that people who believe they are good are more likely to break rules. CEOs who donate to charity more likely to engage in unethical behavior. Politicians who preach about morality more likely to commit scandals. Why? Because our brains reward us for appearing moral, not actually being moral. Now, this is my favorite, the tribal morality effect. Yes, I've read a lot about the tribal system in society and why we are only ethical to our own relates us to the tribal society. Anthropological and political studies of tribal societies show that fairness only applied to insiders. In group members exploited, attacked, or sacrificed. Sound familiar to today's system in the world, isn't it? Companies care about corporate responsibility until it affects their profit margins. That brings us to the modern world. But again, an example from history is the Aztec human sacrifice. That wasn't barbaric to them, it was a moral necessity to keep their world functioning. Medieval sin taxes let nobles buy their way out of punishment, while peasants suffered eternal damnation. The modern version of it? Leaders justify collateral damage in war, just like the Aztecs justified sacrifice. A corporation gets fined for fraud, while an individual committing the same crime goes to prison. The power obedience paradox comes to play. Why people obey when they know it's evil? Ever wonder why people follow orders that they know are wrong? Few experiments in the past, one in 1971 called the Stanford Prison Experiment, and the other is Milgram's shock experiment in 1961, proved that people don't follow morals, they follow power. The moment authority says something is necessary, most people will comply, even if it is horrific. The brain registers authority as morality, which is why leaders can justify anything. Think about your own life for a second. How many things do you accept as normal, even when they make no ethical sense? Just because it's what authority tells you to do. Now, you see why those at the top never play by the rules they expect you to follow. This is the illusion of morality. Why society needs you to believe in it. Let's talk about Emily Durkheim, one of the founding fathers of sociology. He didn't see it as some sacred truth about right and wrong. No, he saw it as a tool to keep the system intact. Yes, the social system intact. Think about it. What's considered good in one society may be evil in another. Why? Because morality isn't universal. It's socially constructed. Killing, absolutely wrong, unless it's a war. Stealing, unacceptable, unless a corporation calls it a strategic loophole. See the pattern? Morality shifts based on who benefits. Now, here's where it gets even crazier. Durkheim made a radical claim that society actually needs crime and violence to function. Wait, what? Crime necessary? That's crazy, right? Because punishing people reinforces the moral order, but only for those without power. A billionaire commits fraud, he pays a fine and moves on. A struggling person steals food, jail time. Society needs bad guys to keep the illusion of morality intact. But those bad guys are never from the ruling class. So the next time you ask, why do rich people get away with everything? There's your answer. The entire structure of morality was built to protect them, not hold them accountable. But what happens when those in power manipulate morality for their own gain? That brings us to Immanuel Kant, a philosopher who had a completely different take. Now, talking about Kant, he believed that morality was absolute, that right and wrong were black and white, no exceptions. Sounds noble, right? But here's the problem: the real world doesn't work like that today. Kant's big idea was the categorical imperative. Every action should be judged based on whether it could be a universal rule. In other words, lying, always wrong. Stealing, always wrong. Breaking rules, never justified. Nice in theory, but let's get real. If those in power actually followed Kant's ethics, they wouldn't exist today or ever in history. Modern power thrives on selective morality. One rule for them, one for everyone else. And it's not just modern, but from the beginning of time. Kant's morality is a fantasy, not because people are evil, but because morality is a system, the game only the powerless are forced to play. And that's a reality they don't want you to see. How do we stop being a pawn in the ethics game? It is simple if we give it a deeper thought into what we do and why we do it in our everyday life. Now that you know morality is just a tool of control, what do? Because if you don't understand how to play within this system, you will always be at its mercy. Trust me, I told this to myself forever since I knew the dynamics of morality and ethics. The power playbook for ethical control. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So don't play by obedience morality, play by strategic morality. The truly powerful use ethics when it benefits them and ignore it when it doesn't. Learn when to follow the rules and when to question them. Control your own moral narrative. Want influence? Start defining what's right instead of letting others do it for you. Stop expecting the game to be fair. The world is not Kantian, it's Darwinian. If you do not leverage strategy, remember, someone else will. Never let guilt be used against you. This is the most important thing. Never, ever be driven by guilt. The powerful don't obey morality. They use it as a tool to shape public perception. The moment someone tries to make you feel guilty for breaking a rule, ask, who benefits from me obeying this? Who loses if I stop playing along? So, call to action, your homework for the week. This week, I want you to identify one rule you follow that doesn't actually make sense. Challenge it, see what happens. The world doesn't change by obeying, it changes by questioning. If this episode made you uncomfortable, fantastic. That means you are waking up. That means you are starting to see the invisible strings that have been pulling at you this whole time. But we are just scratching the surface. Next time, we are diving even deeper into the hidden psychology of influence and control. Why some people command the room without saying a word, while others scream for attention and still go unheard. Why power isn't about who's the smartest or most deserving, but who understands the unspoken rules of dominance. So, subscribe because power isn't waiting for you to claim it, it's already being played. The only question is, are you in the game? Or are you just another pawn? Until then, question everything. challenge the rules, rewrite the game. Catch you next time on Anthropologically Yours, Rashmi. Thank you.